All right. Wow. It has been a while. Welcome, everyone, to a live stream. Hopefully, some of you can tune into this and check out the stream live, hang out with me. I recently changed jobs and I've been pretty busy, but I got a couple days off. And yeah, I'm physically kind of worn out, but mentally a lot more motivated, in a better spot than I have been for several months now. So that's it's good stuff. And along with those changes, we're also getting a ton of news for World of Warcraft Shadowlands, and that's what I want to talk about in this live stream. So this is just gonna be a rambly, talking head sort of live stream. I want to discuss what's going on with World of Warcraft Shadowlands and talk about all the data mine information we have from the alpha, which has started within the past week or two. Also, Blizzard has put out a lot of blog posts or news posts about their changes and intentions for the classes. So I want to take a look at those as well. It's going to be a long stream. Feel free to ask questions, offer your comments, point out news I haven't heard of. I'm going to start on the World of Warcraft and news website and go over the official Blizzard stuff, and then probably jump over to Wowhead and take a look at some of the data mine info that we have there. It's going to be fun. So before we kick things off, I did want to mention something. I know I put out a video where I said, hey, I'm not creating any World of Warcraft content, and that's relatively true. For the foreseeable future. I don't have access to the alpha, so I can't actually play anything yet. I am kind of hoping that I do get access to the alpha. But, there was a caveat in that video where I said, I want to keep an eye on what's going on with Shadowlands. And, if they do a good job at creating new, dynamic, interesting class gameplay, I will 100% eat my words and make some more World of Warcraft content. I just don't have a lot of confidence that they're going to do that. So I wanted to make sure that I, had avenues to do other things in the future. But I would much rather have a super awesome, fantastic World of Warcraft expansion that I think is fun and the class gameplay is awesome, and eat my words and have a great couple of years of World of Warcraft than to be proven right in what I was thinking, with the state of the next expansion and have a miserable expansion. So I honestly hope I'm wrong. I hope I have to eat my words, and I genuinely do really hope that that's the case. Now I will say I've been pretty excited by a lot of the Shadowlands stuff that I've seen, just because the World of Warcraft art team is kicking butt, and they always do. And there's some alpha footage out there now, and I'm looking at everything and I'm like, oh, it's so pretty. And it is pretty. But, for me, everything comes down to the class gameplay. And that's kind of what I wanted to focus on today. But I'm going to look at a lot of other things too. There's like a new starting experience. There's new customization options, all kinds of stuff. So, yeah. Hello, Rich, Valeris, and Tor. Hey, everybody. Thanks for tuning into the stream. Like I said, this is going to be a rambly talking head stream. Please, I'm here to hang out. Hopefully, break up some of the boredom for you guys who are working from home. I was doing that for a few weeks before I switched jobs, so I know how that is. But yeah, let's talk, let's chat, let's get down to it. So I'm on the worldofwarcraft.com news page. They have a Shadowlands news roundup here, and this is kind of where they are posting a conglomeration of all the different news articles they've put out related to Shadowlands. So there's quite a few here. Some of them are pretty short and to the point. I'm going to jump in and kind of talk about the highlights from all of these. I have read through the majority of these. So what I want to cover first is the developer update. So this was where they basically announced that the alpha was happening, and they told you how to opt in. I've opted in. I'm hoping. It'd be nice to get access again. I know they have pre-gen characters on there. That's what I used to make my sort of class introduction guides when I first started the channel, was the pre-gen characters from the Battle for Azeroth beta. So I'm hoping that at some point I'll get in and be able to use those again and check out the classes that way. They mentioned that all classes are immediately going to have changes to their spell books and talents, in some cases even their resources. So with Shadowlands coming, there's a big level squish. Everything is going, instead of 120 being the max level, the max level after you finish the Shadowlands expansion is going to be level 60. So obviously that's going to cause some changes to the talents. They're not going to fall into different levels. Wildhead actually has a talent calculator for alpha that we can take a look at in a little while if we want to. So those are going to change, but there's also been a lot of changes to spells and which specializations have access to different spells and that kind of stuff. So we'll be looking at those in a lot more depth throughout this stream. Also, they are making changes to the quest interface, the starter experience. We're going to look at that a little bit more here in just a minute, and just some of the UI for all that stuff. And then the last kind of thing that they mentioned was that PvP currencies are coming back. So PvP vendors are coming back. Now, I don't really PvP much these days. I mainly just PvP during like Classic and Burning Crusade. Long time ago. I'm probably really rusty. But I know that the PvP community has been wanting currency vendors to come back. And also just from a like gameplay, player agency perspective, I keep up to date on that stuff. And I think that PvP vendors are just a better way to go about implementing the acquisition of PvP gear. So I know this is exciting change for a lot of people who PvP, and I think it's a good step in the right direction and shows that Blizzard is listening to their player base. So, Lost Soul, how's it going? Hard to believe, but so. What class will you main in Shadowlands and why? So we're going to get to that here. I don't know what class I'm going to main. Like I said, even in my other video, where I talked about, not making WoW content going forward, I said, I'm still going to play Shadowlands regardless, because I am. And like I said, I hope I have to eat my words, and it's a great expansion. I really do. But we'll see. There's a couple of contenders for what I might main, and we'll see some of those here in just a minute. And it might be surprising. Okay, so the next thing that I want to look at real quick is the starting experience. So the starting experience has been changed. It's been updated for Shadowlands. So no longer will you start out in your little racial starting area. Instead, you start out on an island called Exile's Reach. An expedition was sent to the island. They've gone missing, and your character has to find out what happened. Along the way, you're going to level from 1 to 10. You're going to be introduced to both your class mechanics and the mechanics of World of Warcraft as a game. And at the end, it all culminates into a mini dungeon with, I think, 2 bosses that's designed for 1 to 5 players. So you're going to play 1 through 10. On this island, discover everything, and do a mini dungeon at the end, kind of put all those skills that you learn to use. I think this is really cool. I actually really, really like this idea here. I personally have like all the characters I want at max level, but I'm probably going to run this anyway just because. Like, I really like replaying the early experiences and leveling characters. When Kata came out, I spent most of my time playing through all the new changed world content as opposed to doing high level stuff. So I'm really looking forward to this. I think this is cool. Now, once you hit level 10, you actually get to choose from level 10 to 50. You can just pick an expansion that you want to play. So there's no more like, okay, well, next you have to pick between Burning Crusade and Wrath of the Lich King. Then you have to pick between Cataclysm and Mist of Pandaria. You can literally get to level 10 and go straight to Battle for Azeroth to level your character up to 50. At 50, that's where you start the content for Shadowlands, and Shadowlands content will take you from 50 to 60. Now, there's also been some changes to the leveling speed, and this has kind of come up in the alpha. Now, put a big asterisk next to this because it's alpha. Anything could change, but it looks like the time to get a character from 1 to 50 where they can start Shadowlands content is landing between 12 to 14 hours compared to, I don't know, 20 plus for an average player to get there now in the current game. So it looks like leveling speed is drastically being increased so that you're going to get to that current game content a heck of a lot faster, and you're also going to have the ability to choose that expansion or a couple of expansions that you want to play through. Now, a caveat to the starting experience is that if you are a veteran player, you do have the option to go back and start in the racial starting zone anyway. If you're a brand new player on like your first character, you have to do the island. And I honestly think the island is probably just going to be the more fun, interesting way to level up anyway, because it's going to have, Legion, BFA, Shadowlands quality game content to play through. So a surprise would be a cloth class. I can take that out and tell you it's not going to be a cloth class that I main. No way. Only after your first tune, your first time, will make you do BFA. Oh, okay. Gotcha. Thanks for clearing that up, Nilaros. So apparently, after your first tune, you could choose the expansion. The first time, you go straight into BFA and then into Shadowlands. So, yeah. Okay, cool. And like I said, if it's, not your first character, then you can start in a regular, I don't know why you would want to, but you can start in your normal racial zone. Maybe if you haven't played through it before. I don't know. I've just been playing Warcraft for so long. I've done that starting experience like 8 million times. So, next thing to talk about are the general class changes. So if you're not up to date with Shadowlands, there's this whole covenant system and there's a bunch of stuff going on there. We're going to take a look at that. But first I want to get into some of the generic class changes. And right now I'm just going to cover the ones that they talk about in this specific article. There may have been additional patches and stuff that we'll get to when we jump over to Wowhead. Now this is a big giant post with tons and tons of text. But I've already read it all, and I can basically sum up my thoughts on this, so this isn't going to turn into me reading you a story. But the general philosophy for changes for Shadowlands class philosophy is that they want to basically do two things. They want to unprune a lot of abilities. So basically a lot of abilities that they have taken away over the years, they want to give back. Across, like, not just in terms of spec versus class, but just in general. Like, there's a lot of abilities for specializations and classes that have been taken away that they want to give back, but they also want to kind of, I don't want to say homogenize, but they want to make it so that when you're playing a class, you are playing that class and your specialization basically pumps up or emphasizes an aspect of that class. So in the current game, if you're playing a warrior and you're playing an arms warrior, fury warrior, or protection warrior, those kind of feel almost like three totally different classes. They don't feel like three versions of the same class because there isn't a lot of overlap in the mechanics and the skills and stuff between all three. Obviously, you do have some, but a lot of times they're like the utility skills, or, you have like charge, which everybody can use. So what they want to do is make it so that you have a larger pool of skills that are common across all the specializations for your class. And then you still get, that emphasis on your specialization through additional skills and your talents and stuff like that. So they want to make it, just so that you always feel like you're playing a warrior, and not like you're only playing an arms warrior or fury warrior or protection warrior. And you'll see that. You'll see that as we go forward a little bit. But in each of these little posts here, and if you kind of want to get up to speed on what's going on with your class that you main, this is the post to take a look at. They talk about, first off, kind of what they've done across the board, like what the goal is for the class, what they've done for the class as a whole, and then they go into specialization stuff as well. So I'm going to touch on these and basically just what I want to let you know. What do I think the big interesting stuff is and how exciting I think the changes are. So Death Knights are getting some skills that come common for the entire class. So everybody's going to get Death and Decay, Anti-Magic Zone, blah, blah, blah. The coolest thing I think is here is that all Death Knights are going to be able to raise dead and have a ghoulish servant that fights with them. So this is something you could do before, but now all Death Knights, regardless of spec, are going to have a little pet ghoul. And I think that's pretty cool. The rest of the specializations, honestly, in my opinion, don't have anything too crazy going on. The biggest things I think are Frost now has the ability to choose between 2 one-handed weapons or 1 two-handed weapon. So this is something that has been requested forever by Frost Death Knights, is the ability to be a two-handed Frost Death Knight. And now you can do that. And it's not an entirely cosmetic choice, but to me it kind of seems like a cosmetic choice. It's going to affect some things like your your attack time, attack speed, that kind of stuff. So that's there. And then Unholy, I thought this was pretty cool. They're going to have the ability to use Summon Gargoyle, which was a talent, just baseline, which is cool. That's a nice ability to have. It's very thematic for the Unholy Death Knight. It's cool that they're getting that. Overall, there's nothing super duper crazy going on with Death Knights, but they are getting a good number of changes and some interesting new abilities. I kind of put them like middle tier in terms of excitement. And I don't know. I think unless they do something super crazy with the Death Knights, I'm probably not going to be maining one in Shadowlands just because I mained one in Legion. I still played one for a good amount in Battle for Azeroth, and it's just kind of been running its course for me for the time being. So, Demon Hunters, wow. Demon Hunters, I don't know what to tell you. So now all Demon Hunters share a single resource, Fury, which doesn't matter. It's just a label change. I mean, it doesn't, like, functionally nothing changes. It's just instead of having Fury and Pain, they just all have Fury. Havoc, which is the DPS Demon Hunter. Nothing crazy going on there. They are getting Immolation Aura, which is cool. That's a really cool, fun ability. And then Vengeance has a couple of cool talent options and some reworks to their talent options, but honestly, there's just not a lot going on with Demon Hunter. Now, that being said, Demon Hunter is one of the classes I have the most fun on. I think there's potential for me to main Demon Hunter in Shadowlands, but that being said, that doesn't mean that they're getting a lot of interesting changes to their gameplay. So, because of that, the likeliness that I would main Demon Hunter is definitely lowered quite a bit, because there are some other classes that I'm actually really excited about. Druid is interesting. So Druid's got 4 specializations, and they're kind of all over the map, I think, in terms of how interesting they are. So Druids are going to have access to a bunch of different abilities across the board, regardless of spec, and this is something that I do like. So Druids are going to have access to Ferocious Bite, Barkskin, Cyclone, Stampeding Roar, and Iron Fur. Now, the kind of key thing for me here is Ferocious Bite gives you a finisher to build towards when you're in cat form if you're not playing feral. So it gives you something to build towards right now. Like, you can go cat form and kind of do some DPS, but it's not all that exciting. Barkskin and Iron Fur give you some ways to kind of defend yourself, increase your tanking capability with Iron Fur, and with Barkskin, you have the ability to prevent interruptions while you're spell casting. So overall, these extra abilities, I think, are going to make it easier to kind of play an off role. So if you're playing as a, feral Druid, and for whatever reason you need to switch over to bear form, you're gonna have a little more options, right? Or if you are restoration but your group's good enough that you don't really need to heal, then you can switch in and do a couple things in cat form, and then go back to resto for the boss fights, or whatever you need to do. So a little bit more flexibility there with Druid. I think that's a good change for the class. But then we get into the specializations, and this is where, to me, it gets kind of crazy. Also worth mentioning is the affinity talents, which already exist, are getting additional utility abilities added to them to make them even more impactful for your sort of like off-roll, off-spec. So balance is going back to the Eclipse system, which is something that was used basically in Wrath of the Lich King. And kind of what you do with this is you cast like Wrath a bunch, and then you get a like lunar eclipse, and then you spam your lunar abilities like Starfire, Star Surge, that kind of stuff, and they kind of get increased damage or whatever. I'm not sure how they have the Eclipse system set up currently, but that's basically what it is. You build up to an Eclipse, and then depending on the type of the Eclipse, you dump, as many abilities of that type as you can into the window where you have the Eclipse. You kind of have ways to extend the Eclipse. It's an interesting system. Balance has been kind of all over the map for me. So I don't know if I'm going to like this or hate this. I know that I don't particularly enjoy the way that Balance plays in Battle for Azeroth. So I'm a little more interested to get into this and try something new. I think that'll be pretty cool. And then moving on, Feral got nothing. So Feral basically, yeah. I feel like Feral's just been ignored, like in general. They have 2 sentences of changes for Feral, and it's basically just saying, hey, we reworked this one talent. So if you main Feral, so far nothing's changing. That's not exciting at all. Guardian Druid is also kind of boring. They get Berserk back, which is fine, and they get Renewal, whatever. Resto has 2 things that I think are interesting. Swiftmin is going back to its old school version where it consumes a heal over time effect to do a big heal. And then also their nature's swiftness is being reverted to allow an instant cast of regrowth, rebirth, or entangling roots. Those are cool. I am interested in getting back into playing some Restoration Druid. So I don't think I'm going to... There's like almost no way I'm going to main Druid in Shadowlands, but I am interested to try out the new balance system, which is an old balance system, and also just to kind of get into Resto Druid healing again, because I haven't really done that significantly for a long time. So Druids are also kind of middle of the road. So far, Death Knight, Demon Hunter, Druid, they're all just meh, whatever. There's some stuff going on. Like I said, I call them like mid-tier level excitement. Moving into Hunter, I'll spoil this one. This is another kind of mid-tier for me. It doesn't look like a whole lot is going on with Hunter. There's going to be some abilities that they get across the board. The big thing I think that a lot of Hunters are going to like is that the stable size is being significantly increased so you can have a lot more companions. And if you're a Hunter, come on. You want to have more pets. So that's great news. And there's also, going to be a ton of cool Shadowlands pets to grab. Beast Mastery overall, I think, is a very straightforward, kind of boring specialization. The stuff that they've added here hasn't really changed my opinion on that. I do think that this bottom one here, Venomous Bite, is kind of cool. This is a replacement for Spitting Cobra that comes with a twist. When your Bestial Wrath ends, a Cobra comes to aid the Hunter in combat, and the Serpent's power will be increased based on how many times you use Cobra Shot during Bestial Wrath. So I think this is cool. It adds a little gameplay loop in there where, you want to, use your Bestial Wrath and then spam Cobra Shots so that you can get a more powerful Cobra once your Bestial Wrath ends. That's kind of interesting. Marksman got a pretty cool talent, I think. Volley. This is a new talent that lets you rain arrows down on a targeted area over a short period of time. I love these abilities in MMOs. I have an ability like this that I use on my character in Elder Scrolls Online that I've been playing here recently. But more interesting is it empowers the Hunter with the Trick Shots buff. This causes all their aim shot and rapid fire abilities to ricochet and hit up to 5 additional targets for half the damage for the entire duration of Volley. This is cool. This actually makes me want to mess around with the Marksman Hunter, and volley into like AoE aimed shots. That sounds pretty cool. Aim shot is a wicked cool sniper style ability. And then rapid fire, you basically are like firing like machine gun style. And that has so many arrows, and I can just picture like volley raining arrows down, and then you rapid fire all these arrows, and all those arrows go everywhere else, and there's just arrows everywhere. So that seems like a lot of fun. Survival. Personally, I really like the Survival Hunter from Legion. Not a lot of people did, but I did, like a lot compared to the other versions of survival that we've had. Unfortunately, it looks like survival is not changing much from its current BFA iteration. They're getting some damage buffs and a laughable reduction in focus cost for chakrams. So, I don't know. I feel like they've reworked survival 3 times and they need to rework it 3 more times before they land on something that's actually interesting. So, we'll see. Overall, like I said, Hunter is middle of the road for me again, mainly because I don't really ever play Hunter as a main sort of class, and they haven't really done anything too interesting to me other than this crazy volley AoE trick shots thing. But I also know, like, depending on the cooldown of volley, that might not be a loop that you can do all the time. Moving on to Mage. So Mage has some changes that I actually do like. So first off, all mages are going to have access to Arcane Explosion, Fire Blast, Frostbolt, and Mirror Image. And wards are coming back for mages as well. So anything that gives mages more defensive abilities is great with me. I like Arcane Explosion being accessible to all mages, especially if you farm old content. This gives you a reliable AoE ability that you can just spam constantly. And then also having access to Fire Blast and Frostbolt and Mirror Image. Once again, regardless of your specialization, you're still going to have access to a couple of abilities that are themed for the other class. I think Frostbolt being available to all mages is really great. It's a good opener when you're just out there leveling to hit something with Frostbolt and slow it down, even if you're a Fire Mage, because, you know, you get that nice, or even if you have Pyroblast or something into a Frostbolt, like having that reliable, cheap slowing ability is really good. Fire Blast is a nice instant cast ability that you can use to finish off an opponent. Like, there's just a lot of good. This particular package of abilities, I think, is just really well-rounded to give the mage access to good situational offensive abilities. And then Mirror Image is just a solid defensive ability that you can have as well. So on the Arcane side of thing, they kind of talked about their main thing is they wanted to give a payoff for Arcane, because Arcane at the moment, you kind of build up to something and then it feels like it kind of falls flat. That's what they're working on. I don't think they quite have it figured out yet, but that's where their changes are focused. Fire has an interesting change to their mastery. So their mastery is Ignite, and basically when you're casting fire spells, you have a chance to ignite a target. That Ignite can spread to other targets around the target, and so you get like some passive sort of AoE going on. But there's a problem with this, and I've run into this problem multiple times where I will be out there trying to level on my Fire Mage, and I'll pull something, and it'll ignite, and it'll pull something that I didn't want to pull. And then while I'm trying to kill that thing, it'll ignite, and it'll pull something that I didn't want to pull. And all of a sudden, instead of like fighting 1 or 2 things at a time, I'm fighting the entire freaking camp, you know, without having any downtime in between to get my mana and my health back. So now, basically, Fire Blast is going to serve as the catalyst to ignite, or to spread the ignite on an enemy. So when the enemy target is ignited, it sounds like they're just going to be the only one ignited. And then if you want that ignite to spread, you hit them with Fire Blast, and that'll spread the ignite. That's really cool. It's not like insane, but it's such a good quality of life change that I think this is just going to be really nice as a Fire Mage. There's some other stuff going on there too, but none of it is like super crazy. It's like damage increases and stuff like that. And then Frost doesn't have a whole lot of stuff going on there either. Overall, Mage is kind of middle of the road for me. Out of all the cloth classes, Fire Mage is what I like to play the most, so I really appreciate the change to Ignite, and I'm excited to continue playing Fire Mage, but it definitely will not be a main character for me. All right, we're going to get into Monk. I'm going to pause real quick, get a drink, remind everybody to like the stream if you're enjoying the content. And Monk is one of the 3 classes I'm the most excited about. And I think there are some really cool changes here. So give me a moment. Like I said, it's going to be a long stream. I got to stay hydrated. How's everybody doing out here in coronavirus world? I hope everybody is staying safe. Nobody's sick. All right, moving on. Monk. Like I said, I am actually super excited about Monk. So let's get into this. This is one of the classes that I think there is a high chance that I main so far based on just what I'm seeing in the generic general like class changes here. So all monk specializations are getting Expel Harm, Fortifying Brew, Spinning Crane Kick, and Touch of Death. So Spinning Crane Kick is a nice AoE ability. That's going to be really great for Brewmasters because you kind of have to talent into an AoE ability right now to have one that's decent and reliable. So getting Spinning Crane Kick default, that's going to be awesome. Touch of Death is a cool ability that already was pretty fun to use in BFA, but they're actually reverting it back to its original design, which is so cool because Touch of Death, basically you put it on a target, after a certain amount of time, it will just straight up kill the target if the target has less health than the monk does. So for your average like enemy out there, this is just an instant kill ability. But they took it to the next level and they said, hey, each specialization is going to get a unique benefit for dealing damage with Touch of Death. So not only did they give Touch of Death to everyone, take it back to its old school like instant kill awesomeness, but they added a bonus effect to it as well, which is cool. And then on top of that, they said, you know what? Each specialization is going to be able to summon their Celestial without having to pick it as a talent, which is awesome. So Windwalkers are going to have the White Tiger, Brewmasters are going to have the Ox, and Mistweavers are going to have the Jade Serpent. So getting into the changes for the different classes, I'm going to come to Brewmaster last, okay? That's the one I'm the most excited about. So Windwalker got the Frost Death Knight change where they can choose between 2 one-handed weapons or 1 two-handed weapon. Not that it really matters. I mean, like I said, it'll affect some things, but it affects even less on a monk because you still, like on Windwalker, you still just punch things. Like your weapon's just there and you just punch things, but it'll still affect a few things here and there. Also, so they're going to be able to call on the White Tiger, and then their Touch of Death bonus is that it spawns Chi Spheres, which the Windwalker can use to basically, do some of their finisher moves. And then also, they are getting a ability, Dance of Chi-Ji. This is a new passive talent. It has a moderate chance to make the next Spinning Crane Kick free to use and deal a significant amount of extra damage to all its strikes. That's cool. Mistweaver, okay. So I'm super excited about Monk, but I'm a little disappointed about Mistweaver, but then I'm also kind of hopeful. This is a roller coaster ride for me. So I really liked when, as a Mistweaver, you could be a Fistweaver. And basically all that is you could be up in front, like melee punching the crap out of stuff, dealing damage. And as you did that, it would heal your allies and stuff. That was the way you played as a healer. And they kind of really toned that down over the last expansion or two. And I was hoping, I was like, please bring it back, bring back fist weaving. And they kind of didn't, but they kind of might have. So we'll look at that here in just a second. So the Mistweaver can summon the Jade Serpent, which will heal allies and spawn nearby healing spheres. Their Touch of Death will spawn healing spheres for allies as well. So extra healing from Touch of Death. That's pretty cool. And so here's the kind of possible fist weaving thing here. They have Chi-Ji the Red Crane. This is a new talent that's available that will summon a different Celestial. And it says it strengthens their physical damage moderately and heals their allies for part of the damage inflicted on enemies. So maybe maybe. I'm like, maybe if you pick up this talent, maybe there's some other talents you can use. Maybe you can get some fist weaving going on. I don't know. If that's a possibility, there's a really high likelihood that I main monk because I really want the fist weaving stuff. I like playing Windwalker in general, and we got to get into these Brewmaster changes, okay? So Brewmaster has the ability now to choose between 2 one-handed weapons or 1 two-handed weapon. Okay, fine. We talked about that enough. They have a returning passive called Shuffle. This will increase the amount of physical damage that you stagger when you use one of several different abilities. They have Celestial Brew, which is a new ability that absorbs damage based on the Imbiber's attack power. And then this, I love this. They brought back Clash. So Clash, if you imagine warriors have charge, right? Where the target's here, the warrior's over here, and they just go boom, and they charge into the target. Clash is kind of like a monk twist on that, where you have the enemy here, the monk is here, and they go boom. It makes you and your opponent charge towards each other, clash in the middle, just like a crazy kung fu flick. It's super thematic. It's super fun. It's cool. I love it. When you clash in the middle, it roots the target as well. But it's just awesome. I love movement abilities. This one, like I said, is super thematic for the monk. It's super cool. It's kind of like a crowd control ability, but it's also a movement ability. So, I mean, you can pull a target towards you and also kind of move towards that target so you can, reposition a little bit. Lots of fun. So they can bring in the Black Ox, which is going to help shoulder their stagger damage. And then their Touch of Death will clear remaining stagger damage on them, which is insane. That's super cool that you're going to have the ability to clear. I don't know if it's all stagger damage. It says it reads like all stagger damage, but I don't know if it's going to do a percentage or whatever. But, that's pretty cool. Not going to be that useful out in the open world, honestly, because you usually don't have a lot of stagger damage. But once you get into dungeons and raids and stuff, I don't know. That's interesting as well because, you get it. You don't have to kill the target. You just have to deal damage with Touch of Death. And Touch of Death on like boss enemies and stuff, it just deals damage because you're not going to instantly kill the boss. So you will be able to clear stagger damage that way. And then this last paragraph here has 2 things that I think are flavorful as hell and sound super awesome and fun. So there's a new talent called Celestial Flames. Drinking your brews has a chance to grant Celestial Flames, which slightly increase Breath of Fire's damage reduction. Now, Breath of Fire, if you don't know, you basically just breathe fire out of your mouth in a cone, and it kind of deals damage and can sometimes light enemies on fire, depending on the setup. But, and it reduces the damage they deal to you as well. But it says, slightly increases Breath of Fire's damage reduction and spreads its periodic damage to affect target struck with spinning crane kick. Now, in my head, I'm just envisioning this, right? Where you are, getting drunk on your brews, you get Celestial Flames, you do Breath of Fire, you're already breathing fire out of your mouth. Then you spinning crane kick, which just spins you around like a tornado. And as you're doing that, you're just kicking fire all over the place and spreading it to different enemies. Like, that seems super cool. That seems super fun. I'm actually really, really excited about this talent, and I hope it's competitive with the other talents on its tier. Either way, it sounds fun. And then they go a step further and they go, hey, Exploding Keg is back as a talent. So this basically immolates enemies on impact. Your Exploding Keg, you basically just slam a keg down of alcohol and it explodes. This now causes an actual explosion, sets enemies on fire, and blinds them for a brief period of time. So there's a lot of cool thematic stuff going on with the Brewmaster. And in my head, like, there is not really role play for me, but like I can get into the character and I'm like, oh, I get to like clash, and then I get to breathe fire, and then I get to kick that fire all over the place at enemies and explode kegs everywhere and summon an ox, and now my Touch of Death just kills stuff. And I'm actually really excited about this, if you can't tell. So Monk to me seems really, really sweet, really awesome. The changes of Monk already, I don't know if they're enough to make me be like, yay, Shadowlands, but they're doing a damn good job. So please make guides for each spec in Shadowlands. I hope if the expansion is good enough, interesting enough, like that's my intention, but we still have to see. I'm not sold yet, right? There's a lot of mixed bag stuff here. There's 3 out of 12 classes I'm actually legitimately excited for. I think I would need like at least half, we'll see. Monk does sound pretty sweet. Yeah, Monk sounds awesome. I like it a lot. And obviously, there's some theme stuff there. I like Monk in general. So that's the thing to keep in mind as I talk about these is some classes I just don't play very much. I don't play Hunter. I really don't play Priest. I don't really play a lot of Warlock. So it's going to be hard to get me excited about those classes. But some classes that I do play a lot, I'm actually not that excited for so far. But, I've always really liked Monk in general, and I think they sound particularly awesome in Shadowlands so far. But next we get to move on to a fun one. Paladin. Yeah, this is sarcastic fun. So I can't get over this. Paladins. Okay, let's start with the good stuff. So paladins have some things that are coming back. So Blessing of Sacrifice, Hammer of Wrath, Sense Undead, Shield of the Righteous, Turn Evil, and Word of Glory will be available for all paladins. Okay, that's cool. Also, auras are going to be available to all paladins. That's something I think is actually really cool. I like auras a lot. I like them being available to all paladins. But there's this paragraph right here that is ruining paladin for me right now. So Holy Power is now the resource for all paladin specializations. I don't like this. There's potential that they could make this okay, but I don't like it. If you don't know what Holy Power is, it's the resource system that's used for Ret Paladins currently, and it's kind of like a mini combo system. I believe you can get 3. I want to say 3 Holy Power. I haven't played Ret in a little while, but basically you have abilities that will generate Holy Power. Then you have abilities that will spend Holy Power, just like you have combo points on a rogue, chi points on a monk, blah, blah, blah. It works decently well for the Ret Paladin. Now, when you're on Holy Paladin or Prot Paladin, you're just using mana as your resource. And really, mana is not super relevant for Protection Paladin. It's more kind of cooldown based more than anything. And it's the most relevant to Holy Paladin because you have to spend it on your healing spells. And, you can spam those quite a bit depending on the situation. Well, now mana apparently is going away, and the resource system for all 3 specializations is going to be Holy Power. Like I said, I'm not super thrilled about this. The reason that I think I'm not super thrilled about this is I don't like the idea of playing a healer or tank that uses such a constrictive resource system. And it's different than playing on like a monk or something. Like monk they've got 5 chi points that they can build up to. And so you kind of have some leeway and stuff in there. When you're playing on Ret Paladin, I don't know, it feels like you're always trying to build up to like 3 and then spend 3 and build to 3 and spend 3. Kind of like on Rogue a lot of times you're trying to build up to 5 and use a finishing move, depending on, the current health and stuff of your opponent. But I don't know. I just generally I don't like the idea, but I'm reserving my judgment. I'm laughing but reserving my judgment until I actually get to see it in action or play it myself. I don't know. I would be interested to know what anyone who mains a paladin thinks about this Holy Power resource for all paladins. Now, I believe this was the case for paladins a couple expansions ago. So they've done it before. I don't remember liking it much then either, but I also didn't play Paladin as much when this was the case. Moving into Holy Paladin, like you see, not a whole lot going on. They are still going to have a talent row that's going to allow them to do aura mastery and increase the uniqueness of their different auras compared to the other specializations. That's something they currently have right now that's staying. Protection Paladins, I mean, look at how short all these are, right? Nothing really going on. Retribution Paladin does get Wake of Ashes as a baseline ability now instead of as a talent, which I think is cool. Wake of Ashes was like their weapon ability from Legion. It's a great ability. It does a little bit of crowd control, a good chunk of damage. I really, really like having this available baseline to all Retribution Paladins. So that's a nice change that I do like. So Paladin is still middle of the road for me because like there's not a whole lot going on, but there's also not a whole lot that I really hate. Like I said, the Holy Power thing, I don't think that I'm going to like it, but I also haven't played with their Shadowlands iteration of it yet, so I can't really say. They have surprised me a few times where I looked at something and I was like, that's not going to be fun. And it actually was fun. Arms Warrior for Legion was something that I thought looked really stupid, and then I played it and I was like, you know what, I kind of like this. So they have some room to surprise me there. Priest, I don't really want to comment on Priest too much. It's the class that I play the least. It's the one I know the least about. It's the one I am always the least excited about. I'm not a Priest player. The theme doesn't hit me, but I do have a couple of small comments for the Priest. So Mind Blast, Mind Soothe, Power Infusion, Shadow Word Death, and Shadow Word Pain are going to be available for all Priests now. Mind Blast, Shadow Word Death, Shadow Word Pain are like 3 core abilities for Shadow Priests. Like when you're playing Shadow Priest, you are using those all the time. And so it's weird that out of these 5 abilities, 3 of them are not only shadow abilities, but they're like core rotation abilities for the Shadow Priest. Just seems weird, especially when you look at Shadow and you see that they didn't really do anything so far to like give them more stuff. They changed a couple of different like talents. They're still using the insanity system, which I personally just really don't like. You like build up your insanity and then you can activate it, and then you like are constant, like it just drains and you're just constantly fighting, trying to keep it up. And I hate that gameplay loop, and they haven't changed that at all. I know a lot of other Shadow Priests also don't like that gameplay loop. So I'm interested to see if they replace or give Shadow more things to do, since 3 of their key abilities are getting given to all priests, or like what the situation is going to be there. Holy Priests, nothing super crazy. And same thing with Disciplined Priests as well. They got a little bit more ability to kind of emphasize their how they tread the line between Shadow and Holy. And that's kind of the core of it. So Priest, I'm not excited about at all, but that's just because I never am excited about Priest. Rogue is getting a couple things that I think could be really cool. So Rogue is one of the 3 classes, along with the Monk and a class we haven't gotten to yet, that I'm excited about and think I could main in Shadowlands. So a couple of things. Rogues are getting poisons back across all specializations. So all specializations are going to be able to coat their blades with poisons. You're going to have access to instant, crippling, and numbing poisons, which is nice. That's something really thematic for rogues, and I kind of thought it was... I remember coming back to Rogue after a long time of not really playing it and going, where are my poisons? Like, what's going on? So those are back, which is really nice. And they also are making a change to Pickpocket, which I think has a lot of potential. So Pickpocket now will frequently uncover new ingredients that can be mixed into your Crimson Vial, which is your like healing ability. It's like on like a 30-second cooldown. You use it pretty frequently. And it'll augment the power of the Crimson Vial the next time you drink it. I think they have the ability to do some really cool stuff with this, or they could do some really boring stuff. Either way, I think this does add value to Pickpocket that isn't necessarily there currently. So I'm excited about both those. Poison's coming back, a reason to Pickpocket that ties into an ability that you actually do get to use pretty frequently and has the potential to be really cool. Some stuff that could be really cool is, transformation effects, stealing opponents' abilities, some stuff that could be really boring, increased healing, increased critical strike chance, basically just stat stuff would be boring, but, it would be fine as well. Assassination, not a whole lot going on there. They've got a talent change that allows them to have access to ambush even when they're not in stealth. Jumping down to subtlety. They got some changes and stuff, but nothing too crazy. There's a big change for Outlaw, though. Outlaw is the specialization that I play the most, the one that I enjoy the most. Roll the Bones no longer takes combo points. Oh, so awesome. So instead it's cooldown based, and that cooldown can be, it sounds like it can be reduced based on how you use your finishing moves. Something that's really annoying about Roll the Bones right now is like when you start off fighting an enemy, you build up combo points so that you can cast Roll the Bones, and the more combo points you have, the longer like the duration is, and the more effects you can get, I think. But basically you've got to like start building up your combo points to Roll the Bones, and then you build up your combo points again to do a finishing move. But it's just a really awkward loop, because as a rogue, you want to build up your combo points and then just do big dig damage to whatever you're fighting most of the time. But instead you're like, roll the dice. Okay, now big dig damage. And it's really weird. But now instead you can roll the bones before you get into combat, I would assume. Go in, build up your combo points, and then based on how you do your finishing moves, you can keep, you can reduce the cooldown or whatever on Roll the Bones and be able to use it more often. I think that's a really good quality of life change for Outlaw Rogue. I'm super excited about it. I'm not excited about the change to Between the Eyes. Between the Eyes is a finishing move. It basically does a ton of damage. One of the Roll the Bones buffs you can get makes it critical hit like every time, which turns it into a huge chunk of damage. And it also stuns the target. It's really dope because you build up these combo points and then you just shotgun blast someone in the face for a huge chunk of damage and a stun. And it feels really good. It's a really cool ability. But they're changing it so that the stun is no longer there, and instead you like increase your chance to critically strike on that foe instead. And hopefully you're still going to get the big damaging shotgun blast. But I liked having the stun. It was really nice, especially when you're fighting elites and you're not going to kill them because you could build up and basically Between the Eyes like right away to get the stun, do some other stuff, let that come off cooldown, let the diminishing return kind of go down, and then do it again if you needed to. So I don't like that they're taking the stun away, but they're also taking combo points away as a requirement for Roll the Bones. So I'm not going to complain too much. So I actually am really excited about Rogue. I think Rogue looks interesting. I kind of sort of took a bit of a break from Rogue. All I really did was level Rogue. And the last time I hardcore mained a Rogue was Warlords of Draenor. So it's been 2 expansions, and I could see myself maining a Rogue again. The only downside to maining a Rogue is, queues for dungeons and stuff, because all your specializations are damage. So that's always a deterrent for me when it comes to Rogue. Shaman. Okay, Shaman is the third class that I'm actually really excited about. So you got them all now. The 3 that I'm the most excited about and could see myself possibly maining right now based on current information are Monk, Rogue, and Shaman. So Shaman, all Shaman are getting access to Chain Heal, Chain Lightning, Healing Stream Totem, Flame Tongue Weapon, Flame Shock, Frost Shock, and Lightning Shield. Super awesome, right? So once again, this kind of ties into what I was saying earlier about the Druid and being able to have that versatility outside of your primary specialization. So if you are playing an Enhancement Shaman, you can still Chain Heal. You can still Chain Lightning. If you're playing, as a Restoration Shaman, you still have access to like Lightning Shield that you can put on yourself, or you have access to Chain Lightning as well. Well, you got that anyway, but you get what I'm saying. You have a little bit more versatility between your specializations. That's really nice. We're going to talk about Resto real fast. Earth Shield is now an ability that all Restoration Shaman have without having to choose a talent. That's fantastic. That's something they had before. Earth Shield is just a cool ability that I think makes the Shaman, the Restoration Shaman rotation more interesting. So I'm happy to see that come down as a baseline ability. And they're going to get a new talent in place of that. Now, the exciting stuff is when we talk about Elemental and Enhancement. So for both Elemental and Enhancement Shaman, the Maelstrom resource is gone. It's gone. It's so great. I hated managing Maelstrom. I like just playing a regular old Shaman without the Maelstrom BS. Maelstrom was kind of like runic power. Well, not even. It was like a resource that you had to build up, kind of like Rage, sort of. But either way, like I just didn't like the flow of having to build Maelstrom and spend it. It's gone. Okay, it's gone. Elemental Shaman are getting some changes to basically improve the payoff for their Earth Shock and Earthquake abilities. So now things are going to be based on kind of like cooldowns. And stacks instead. So when you are building up to Earthshock or Earthquake, you basically have stacks that you can get. And when you cast one of those abilities, depending on how many stacks you have of their associated buffs, you deal more damage with them. So that's pretty interesting. They got some new talents and stuff. So overall, I like that Maelstrom's gone from Elemental. I like the stacks and kind of managing the stacks. I mained, for Warlords of Draenor, I mained a Rogue and I mained a Elemental Shaman. And so probably not going to main an Elemental Shaman again because I did play them quite a bit in Legion as well. But Enhancement, Maelstrom's gone. They're now based on a more cooldown sort of resource system instead of, having this Maelstrom bar. And everything in this paragraph, I'm just going to sum it up and say that now it sounds like Enhancement Shaman is back to the point where they just do insane bursts of damage out of nowhere. And I love that type of Shaman. Like you're just kind of like sitting there, plugging away, doing a little bit of damage, just kind of like, man, am I ever going to kill this mob? And all of a sudden the mob just explodes because you just do a shit ton of like free cast and crits. And that is really fun. It's not fun when you are playing against something that's like higher level than you and you're just like, nothing's triggering. I'm not doing anything. But if, with the way level scaling and stuff works now, you're pretty much, you should always be fighting something relatively on par with what, your actual level it is. So that loop should feel a lot better where you're kind of like build up, and then the enemy explodes and you're like, oh, wow. It's a great feeling. I really like that on Enhancement Shaman. So I really, really, really want to try it out and see how it is. Even with Maelstrom and stuff, I still liked Enhancement Shaman, even in battle for Azeroth. So these are all positive changes for me, and I'm pretty excited about the Shaman. Warlock is probably the second class that I play the least after Priest. And honestly, Warlocks are getting curses back. So curses are not damage over time abilities, but they're kind of like timed abilities. Like you put a curse on something, and usually after a certain amount of time, something happens. And so those are coming back. Affliction is being, they're trying to focus it more as a damage over time spec, and the payoff being damage over time and multi-dotting. I think that's good. I think that's the way that Affliction should play. When I go in to play Affliction, that's what I want to do. I want to multi-dot and just watch stuff die while I stand there. And it sounds like that's the direction they want to take the Affliction lock, even though there's not a ton of changes involved with that. Demonology, it appears that they think it's in a really good place right now, so there aren't a lot of changes coming for that. And then Destruction, basically nothing. So it looks like they think Warlock is in a fairly good spot, aside from making Affliction a little more dot focused than it already is. Honestly, I'm not excited about this. I don't hate Warlock in Battle for Azeroth, but it also doesn't do anything to excite me. So with the current changes that I'm seeing, there's not anything getting added here to change that either. So then we get into Warrior, but I'm going to check chat first. Is that two-handed weapon on Shaman? Those were the days. Also, I remember trying to be a weird off-tank with like a one-hander and shield on a Shaman without the abilities to get me there. So, all right. So Warrior is getting a good amount of abilities across the class as a whole. So all specializations are going to have access to Execute, Hamstring, Ignore Pain, Shield Block, Shield Slam, Spell Reflection, and Whirlwind. Some of these seem super weird. Like, I'm not going to mind having them, but picture this. You're an arms warrior with your giant two-handed axe. You charge into the enemy and you shield slam? What? Where's the shield coming from? Also, picture this. You are a protection warrior. You charge in. You've got 5 enemies around you. And all of a sudden, instead of throwing up your shield and blocking and etc., you just spin like a ballerina to do Whirlwind with your shield and your one-hander. So just thinking about this from like the visual perspective, I'm like, you know what? Some of these don't make a lot of sense. I mean, I'll take them, but what? They brought back Shattering Throw. With a twist. So now Shattering Throw is going to deal devastating damage against foes that are protected by an absorption shield. That's super cool. I like that. I like that ability has a like specific targeted use. That's cool. And then Double Time and War Machine talents are going to be available to all specializations. So those modify your charge in different ways. And I honestly kind of missed having the ability to have those on the other specializations. So I like those changes. Now, arms. I didn't play a whole lot of arms in Battle for Azeroth. There's not a whole lot going on. There's some changes to cleave that I don't know if I really like. And they've added the Seismic Wave Azerite trait into Dreadnought. So that's fine. Fury Warriors. Get a couple of changes. The main ones that I think here, like Frothing Berserker's been reimagined. Now when you hit 100 rage, you gain haste and movement speed. There's a Wrecking Ball talent, which will give a chance for your next Whirlwind to deal a devastating amount of damage, which makes sense to me because you're spinning around with two-hander weapons. And then also Fresh Meat will now cause Bloodthirst to always enrage you the first time you strike a target with Bloodthirst. Moving on to Protection. This paragraph really makes me laugh, okay? So, in their shining armor, Protection Warriors are seen as stalwart defenders, but behind the shield stands a cold-blooded tactician. Protection Warriors can now tap into their brutal side with some reimagined talents, okay? Brutal. All right, what do you picture when you think brutal, right? I'm thinking like hulking barbarian, giant, covered in blood, sweat, roaring, just, slamming through stuff, crushing skulls. That's what I think when I think brutal. Best Served Cold increases the damage of Revenge, with the damage bonus increasing significantly after a successful dodge or parry has made Revenge cost no rage. Okay, I see this one, right? I see it. Like, Revenge is a nice AoE ability. You kind of hit with your shield. Cool. So you dodge and you're like, I don't think so. Boom. And you hit him with your shield. Okay, I get it. Menace has been redesigned with this theme in mind. Empowering, intimidating shout to cause all enemies to cower in fear for a substantial amount of time, knocking back those that are not the primary target. Okay, so you intimidating shout. You let out a roar, and it's not brutal, but it's tough. It's strong. It's okay, right? Right? You knock some things back. You make some things cower. It doesn't seem super brutal. To me, it'd be like, oh, you roar so loud that you make their ears bleed, and you deal damage over time. Bleed damage. I don't know. That seems more brutal, right? Indomitable will passively increase the warrior's maximum health by a moderate amount, and spending rage while the ability is active will heal their wounds. What's brutal about that? You get maximum health and you heal yourself. So brutal. That doesn't make sense to me. If it increased your maximum health and spending rage increased the damage that you dealt, I can kind of see that, because then I'm like, oh, you're just powering through and getting stronger and stronger as you spend your rage and stuff. But healing doesn't seem that brutal to me. And then Never Surrender increases ignore pain by either a moderate or significant amount based on your missing health. So once again, if you're missing a lot of health, you get a bigger ignore pain, which once again is more of like a defensive thing. It doesn't seem brutal to me. I don't know. Like, this paragraph makes me laugh because of how much they were like, tap into the brutal side. And I'm just like, these abilities don't really, like, if I really layer on the role playing, really layer it on, like, imagine what I've seen in movies and stuff, then I can kind of see some of this. If I look at it in WoW, I don't even know if that's the case. You're still just going to revenge like normal. It's just going to deal more damage. And that doesn't really seem brutal. So I don't know. I feel like they're missing the mark here on their thematic intention for their additions to protection. But I don't know. Maybe it'll feel brutal when you're playing it and you just do a ton of revenge damage or something. I don't know. Let me know what you think. If you think that's brutal enough or not. So that's the end of the general class changes for Shadowlands. So with that in mind, a quick recap. So I'm not particularly interested in Warlock, Priest, Paladin, or Hunter. I don't necessarily think they're awful. I don't think that Blizzard has really taken steps backwards for most of these, except for possibly Paladin with the Holy Paladin, or with the Holy Power resource system. I'm middle of the road for Warrior, Mage, Druid, Demon Hunter, and Death Knight. I think these are kind of they're getting stuff, but not necessarily enough stuff that I think they're drastically changing up what the gameplay loop is going to be like. Some of these have a little more than others do. I am for Druid. I honestly don't know if the Eclipse system is worse or better, or just right down the middle. And then I'm really excited about Monk, Rogue, and Shaman. These are the ones I'm currently looking at as possibly being mains. If I had to put them in order, it would probably be Monk, Shaman, Rogue right now. Purely because Rogue, while interesting, just has 3 DPS specs, and that's kind of crap for trying to get into dungeons. Whereas Shaman does have a healing specialization that I could use, and enhancement is getting some big changes compared to the smaller scale changes for Rogue. And I like the big bursty enhancement Shaman that you used to be able to play in the past. And then Monk has damage, healing, and tank. It's got all the specializations, really well-rounded. They're doing some really cool thematic stuff with the Brewmaster, which is probably what I would end up playing a large majority of the time for dungeons anyway. And it looks like maybe there might be some fist weaving stuff in there for healing, which I think is great. If that ends up being a viable specialization, that'll probably lock in Monk as the top contender for Shadowlands main for me. So what do you think? If you hung around and you kind of sat through all that and got my impressions, my changes, do you think that the class you're currently maining looks awesome and you want to continue on playing as that class? Or do you see something else that caught your eye? Or are you a little disappointed? Or do you think some of the things I'm excited about are not that exciting? What do you think? Let me know. It's not the end of the stream or anything, but this is the end of the class update. So I'm interested to see, what your impressions are as well. Once again, thanks everybody for tuning into the stream. I'm hydrating. If you are enjoying the stream, don't forget to give it a thumbs up. That's always good. It makes YouTube pay attention. It is super dry and snowing here in the middle of April. So it's interesting. So wear tear on my voice a little bit. Okay, so we've talked about some generic changes for Shadowlands. We've talked about the new starter experience. We've talked about the class updates, the general, just nothing to do with expansion content, just baseline class changes that we've seen. The next thing to talk about is going to be the covenants. So, okay, we're going to jump over. This Shadowlands website is just really awful on my computer for whatever reason. I have a super powerful computer and great internet, and yet still all the videos and stuff on this website just make this page run like crap on my computer. But we're going to jump down here because I want to introduce you to the covenants in case you're not up to speed on them, or just remind you about what they are before we start looking at the actual function, the mechanics of them. So let's see if we can pull these up here. Apologize for the mouse clicks. Stop jumping around. There we go. All right, let's get off of this site. And hopefully these aren't as bad. Yeah, these aren't nearly as bad. All right, so talking about the covenants. Let's see. Grant says he mained Rogue and BFA, so I'm like you in that I'm sad about the Between the Eyes change. I'm down for that Roll the Bones change, though. Yeah, I know. And also, I mean, you're going to have poisons, too, as Outlaw Rogue. And, like I said, that Crimson Vial thing sounds super cool. I'm down for those Rogue changes so far. All right, so let's take a look at Covenants and some of the abilities. And I'm going to talk about the issues that I see with the Covenants here. I think there are some potential issues, but that being said, some of these are actually pretty cool looking. Some of these abilities that you get, they're interesting. It's a mixed bag for me. We're going to get into it. Okay, so when you get to Shadowlands, you're going to be playing through the different zones of the expansion. And each of the zones, the kind of main zones, is specific to one of the covenants. Covenants are kind of like the factions in Shadowlands. There's one or two, I think, extra zones that aren't covenant related, but the core storyline content is going to take you through these zones, and you're going to interact with these covenants. And then when you get to max level, you're going to pick a covenant to champion, essentially. And that's going to lock you into that covenant. You can change covenants later on, but apparently it's going to be pretty difficult to do. Locking into a covenant gets you several different things. So let's see if they don't cover them here. So you have the Kyrian covenant. This is set in the zone of Bastion. Kyrian is kind of like the angelic, I would say holy Olympian sort of looking covenant. Okay. Then you have the Venthyr. So their zone is Rivendreth. And they are basically just kind of like a vampire, Dracula style faction. Lots of undead head on spikes, creepy castles sort of things going on there. Then you have the Night Fae. Their zone is Ardenweld, and they're kind of like the nature defender of the spirits and the cycle of rebirth. So you can see you've got like a satyr and some kind of fairies and blue forests, all this kind of stuff going on here. I'm trying not to sound like I honestly think this is probably the covenant that I like the least, just on looks. And I was trying to give that description without sounding too negative. Look at these satyrs and these fairies. And I don't know if you like this, I'm not trying to offend. I just realized as I was saying, I was like, dude, don't sound so disgusted. Anyway, yeah, this is I don't know, it's something about the blue and purple version like I just don't particularly latch onto. Like I like the Emerald Dream style stuff, but not this one so much. And then the last covenant you could choose is the Necrolord. Their zone is Maldraxxus, and they kind of have like a undead, warlocky, demon sort of look going on. Right? So you choose a covenant, and then what? Well, covenant gives you a couple of different things. It gives you a covenant ability, a signature covenant ability. It gives you a class covenant ability. It gives you access to covenant transmogs, covenant armor sets, covenant mounts, lots of cosmetic stuff as well. So you'll get to end game, and I'm assuming that most average players are going to get to end game. They're going to have checked out the covenants, and they're going to go, I think that one's the coolest, or I think that one suits my character the most. That's the one I'm going to pick, right? But not everyone's going to be like that. A lot of people min-max. A lot of people play high-level content, and they're going to look at these, and this is where I think they're going to run into issues. But we'll jump into them here. Okay, so let's take a look at the signature abilities. Now, the signature abilities for each covenant, it's just an ability that you get that is accessible to you regardless of what class or specialization you're playing. You just get it for championing that covenant. It's kind of like zone abilities from Warlords of Draenor, kind of. Like when you're in that zone, you have that ability, except this is not tied to any zone. It's just tied to championing that covenant, and you can use it wherever as far as we know so far. So the Kyrian, which was kind of like the Olympus, Greek sort of faction, has Summoned Steward. You call your steward to bring you a vial of serenity that can be consumed to restore some of your health and remove all cure, disease, poison, and bleed effects. Your steward additionally offers access to a selection of useful amenities once per day. Don't know what those are. I don't know if it's like bank access, vendor access, or, hey, here's some food items, or, don't know what those are yet. Just based off this information. But okay, you get a little bit of a heal, and you get kind of like a debuff removal sort of ability. The Venthyr has Dora of Shadows. This is the vampire faction. You win through the shadows, appearing at the targeted location, so you kind of get a little teleport, a little movement skill ability. The Necrolords have Fleshcraft. You form a shield of flesh and bone that prevents damage equal to a portion of your maximum health. Standing near the corpse of a defeated enemy when this ability is cast will create a larger shield. So, okay, you get a, nice damage prevention ability. And then the Night Fae, which are tied to the, blue fairies. I don't know. I don't know what to call them, okay? You can turn into a Vulpin, which increases your movement speed. So you get a movement ability. You can reactivate this ability to teleport a short distance forward. You can gain additional cosmetic forms for your movement form. And then while you're in the open world out there, there's a short duration before the effect wears off. But if you are in a rest area, then you can be in this form indefinitely. So you could see there are these signature abilities here, and they kind of vary. Like, all of them have a potential combat application. 2 of them are movement-based. The other 2 are not necessarily. But this is where I see some issues, okay? If I'm playing as a tank, I'm probably going to want that Fleshcraft ability from Necrolords to be able to get myself a shield equal to my maximum, or equal to a portion of my maximum health, which is going to be super huge because I'm a tank and I'm increasing my maximum health by a ton. And then the standing near a corpse thing is just a bonus. That sounds like a really good ability for a tank to have. But what if I'm on my paladin and I want to go for the Kyrian Covenant because I think that's more suitable to my paladin's image? And thematically, I just like that. Or maybe that's just my favorite faction. Maybe I only have one character and I'm only going to pick one covenant, and that's the covenant that I think is the coolest. Well, now I lose out on access to this Fleshcraft ability, which if you're min-maxing or you're pushing high-level content, might be a really important ability to have. It might be a required ability to have if you're pushing that kind of content and you're serious about it. Not because Blizzard makes it a required ability on purpose, but just because it pushes you far enough that it's that important for you to have. Well, now you're in a situation where you have to choose this Necrolord Covenant in order to get this ability, even though all the other stuff associated with the Necrolord Covenant you might not care about at all. Now, like I said, I think most people are going to just get up there and they're going to pick the Covenant that they think is the coolest in general or the coolest for their character. You know, and the average player, that's where they're going to be at. I hope Blizzard is going to balance these abilities in such a way that it's difficult because they want this to be an important choice. So if this ability is like mediocre, then people aren't going to get excited about this. But if it's too overpowered, or if these abilities are super powerful, you're going to run into that situation where you have a tank that wants this Fleshcraft ability but doesn't want to go to Necrolord, and now you're feeling left out. It's kind of like what they've, some of the situations we used to have with racials, like going undead got you Will of the Forsaken, which was really nice to have in PvP. So it didn't make sense to play other races, as like rogues or something like that, unless you were undead because you just got that ability. So I think the potential is here for this to cause some issues depending on how strong these abilities are. And like I said, if they're not that powerful, then this choice is no longer that interesting, right? I think they've set themselves up for like a lose-lose situation here. So I'm interested to see how they handle it. So then we're going to add another layer of complexity here to this whole situation, because these are the signature abilities that you get regardless of your class or specialization, but each Covenant has a class ability for every class. So we could take an example here and let's see if one of the ones I'm excited about has all of the abilities. Not Monk, not Rogue, not Shaman. Well, dang. Let's look at Druid. Okay, so Druid for Kyrian has Kindred Spirits. Form a bond with an ally. On a cooldown, you can empower the bond for a period of time, granting you an effect based on your partner's role, and granting them an effect based on your role. Okay, interesting. For the next faction, we have Ravenous Frenzy. For a period of time, Druid spells you cast increase your damage, healing, and haste by a percentage, stacking. If you spend a period of time idle, the frenzy overcomes you, consuming a percentage of your health per stack, stunning you, and then ending. All right. Adaptive Swarm. Command a swarm that heals or deals shadow damage to a target and increases the effectiveness of your periodic effects on them. Upon expiration, this travels to a new target within range, alternating between friend and foe up to a set number of times. And then Convoke Spirits. Call upon the Night Fae for an eruption of energy, channeling a rapid flurry of 16 Druid spells and abilities over 4 seconds. You will cast Moonfire, Wrath, Regrowth, Rejuvenation, Thrash, Rake, Shred, and Ironfur on appropriate nearby targets, favoring your current specialization. Okay, so these are all over the place, right? So now you have the situation where you have the Covenant ability, which could be really effective for your role. But then you have the class Covenant ability, which also could be really effective for your role. And I don't know if this is the way they're trying to balance it, by saying like, hey, yeah, maybe the, Necrolord has a great tanking ability across the board, but if you're a Druid, then actually, the Kyrian has a great tanking ability for Druid specifically. So maybe you don't want to take Necrolord because Kyrian will give you a good class-specific ability. But then what if you want to play as Venthyr for your character? Well, now you don't have a tanking ability from Necrolord and you don't have a tanking ability from Kyrian. You just have some oddball abilities that don't necessarily enhance what you're doing as your role either way, because you went for the faction you thought was the coolest. So, off the negative hype chain, I think these are cool, right? I think these abilities are interesting. I like them quite a bit. Signature ability is kind of whatever. I honestly wish that the signature ability was something utility or cosmetic based. I actually think that what they do with the Night Fae soul shape is really cool conceptually. Like turning into a movement speed increasing form, being able to earn additional cosmetics for it, and being able to use that form indefinitely in a rest area is cool. I think the steward, summoning the steward to have access to a selection of useful amenities once per day, sounds interesting. That would be something cool that wouldn't have anything to do with combat if they kind of built that up and took the rest of it down a little bit. I think, there, like I said, to me, it's like a lose-lose situation. Like if they make these utility-based, then maybe they're not as important. But if they make them combat-based, maybe they're too important. I don't know. I'm really interested to see how these pan out and how influential and important they actually are. I'd be really interested to know what you think. There are a lot of class abilities that are currently out there that you can look at for the classes that you are interested in playing at. As some of them are still work in progress. They're all still work in progress, but some of them are work in progress to the point that they don't actually have even a base level ability in there. But yeah, I think this system is cool. And there's an additional layer on top of this. So not only do you have the Covenant signature abilities, the Covenant class abilities, but you also have the Covenant soul binds. And I think this one shows or mentioned them. So once you choose a Covenant, you get the Covenant signature ability, you get the Covenant class ability, and then you get access to soul binds. And soul binds are basically mini talent trees, and you have a choice between 3 different soul binds per Covenant. So soul binds are going to give you a mini talent tree that you can put stuff into. It's going to give you additional passives, possibly abilities as well. And your soul binds are supposed to be easy to change, right? Your Covenant's supposed to be difficult to change, so once you choose a Covenant, you're kind of locked into it. But your soul bind is something you're supposed to be able to change fairly easily. So you can flip-flop back and forth between the 3. Maybe that's where they make up some of the difference. I don't know. We haven't seen a whole ton of stuff, at least from Blizzard, about this soul bind system. But there are some things about it available on Wowhead. So we're going to jump over to Wowhead. And Wowhead has a lot of like cosmetic stuff and just cool new customization options. We're going to get to look at a lot of pictures here as opposed to a lot of, just text dump, class change, patch note style info. Catalog says, personally, I feel they still have a lot of work to do on the Covenants. It's good they are starting to dabble early in this. I agree. I'm glad that they have them available for testing already. The book for Shadowlands, I believe you could pre-order it now, and I think it comes out June or July. It's one of the middle J months, which to me is a pretty solid indicator that if they follow the progression for Battle for Azeroth, we're looking at a September, October release for the expansion, potentially. But if they take a longer period of time to do testing, that's obviously going to push that back even more. I would much rather they take additional time for testing and put out a good expansion than put out the half-baked Battle for Azeroth that we got. I think at this point, they can't afford to do that again. So we'll see. So let's jump in and look at some of this stuff here. We're going to jump back a few pages. So the Shadowlands stuff, I've got this filtered down as well, which is going to help quite a bit. You can see we got a lot of stuff to look at here. A lot of it is just pictures. Yeah, here we go. The book is available July 14th, so mid-July. So it's roughly around the same time that the Battle for Azeroth book came out as well. Okay, so this is about where we need to be, I believe. Let's see. AoE capping, that's another thing that popped in here. Okay. Some of these I'm not going to jump into. I'm just going to read the title. I've looked at them, you know, all before. But okay, so closed alpha invites go out this week. This is about where we need to start. So we've already looked at the class covenant abilities and talked about those. We've talked about the two-handers for Death Knights, Windwalker monks, dual wield Brewmaster monks available. The pet stable size increase for hunters. The return of Warlock curses. We talked about the starting experience. Demon Hunters, Death Knights, and allied races will begin at level 10. I believe this has changed to level 8. We'll see that in just a minute, as opposed to level 10, but we'll check that out. Obviously, they start a little bit later on. I thought this was weird because they're all kind of starting at the same level, whereas right now there's a huge discrepancy between Demon Hunters starting at like level, 90? 90? Somewhere in there. Death Knights at 55 and allied races at 20, so it's weird for them to all start at a consistent level, I think. So this one was interesting. The Shadowlands Alpha achievements, allied race requirements no longer require Exalted. So I thought this was pretty cool. It looks like now you may not have to farm Exalted in order to get access to allied races. So for example, here, this feat of strength, allied races, Dark Iron Dwarf unlock requirements. Allied races, you have to have earn the achievement ready for war, reach exalted with the 7th Legion. Removed criteria is reach exalted with the 7th Legion. Now, I don't know necessarily if this means that you don't need to get this achievement at all. But it looks like that's the case. Like, these are turning into feats of strength, which is an indicator that this mechanic in general is going away. So it may be that everyone just gets access to all the allied races once Shadowlands comes out. And if that's the case, that is super awesome. I approve so much because I hate rep grinds. I absolutely hate rep grinds. So that's a cool piece of information. We're going to skip over all the kind of like spoilery bits because I'm not super interested in spoiling those. We've got new maps, the world map and zones. So different zone maps here. And then the world map. It's kind of a funky view of the world map. But you can see it's kind of like interconnected islands floating out in the goop. I don't know. That's the first word I thought of. These zones actually look pretty interesting. I wonder if you can tell how vertical they are. And this one looks kind of like a pain. Like, look at all these walls you probably have to run around. Oh, man. This one's pretty open. Some swirly bits here. I don't know what those are. That's going to be interesting. Aldraxis looks kind of annoying. There's lots of mountains and stuff going on. Not a big fan of these sort of zone designs in general. Makes me think of that, the later zone that they released for Warlords of Draenor that's super annoying to navigate. And then Bastion is currently what's available for testing in alpha. So there's all sorts of videos and stuff out there for those as well. Class abilities and changes, we talked about that already. So here, Covenant Cloak Transmog. So this is a new thing. Like when you pick a Covenant, you get access to these new back transmogs for like your cloak. And at least for the Kyrian, you have access to these sort of like wing and angelic looking ones. These are pretty cool, I think, honestly. They look pretty awesome. Looks like we got the Necrolord ones too. Okay, so you can get like some bone wings or some crystals. The Night Fae. Okay, lots of like druidy looking stuff. And then the Venthyr. Oh, you can have a tombstone. That's pretty sweet. I dig it. So there's a change for AoE. If you're not aware of this, this is interesting and highly criticized, I think. Like right now it's a hot topic. So basically AoE abilities are being capped between 5 and 8 targets. So instead of being able to hit like 30 targets with your AoE if they're close to you, they are now capped at 8 targets maximum. Now, this is a change that apparently is something that's being spurred on by Mythic Plus primarily, where you can just kind of like pull an entire dungeon and AoE spam things down. Blizzard basically wants to decentivize that particular behavior. And so now if you were to pull 30 enemies and spam your AoE, you're only hitting 8 of them. So 22 of them are not taking any damage and still wailing on you. So the intention here, I think, is to slow down those pulls and to make people think a little bit more as they do those pulls. I don't know. I mean, really the only place that I think this has a detrimental effect is in running old raids. But at the same time, if you're spamming your AoE abilities, you're probably killing everything in one hit anyway. So having to push the button 2-3 more times is not really that big of a deal. But this is a hotly contested issue. We got some new armor. So cloth stuff for Ardenweald, Bastion. You can dig in here and check these out. They look okay. I mean, a lot of them look kind of like themes that we've seen before. I don't know. I don't know how I feel about all of them. Mount models. I'm actually interested in these mount models quite a bit. There are apparently over like 80 different mounts that have been added to Shadowlands. And it looks like you could probably reduce that number down to 20 because of recolors. That is a weird looking bear. I don't know if I like it. Lots of unicorns, vampire bats. Okay, these honestly aren't that interesting because they're mounts that we have styled slightly differently. Shame on you, Blizzard. Okay, this is kind of cool. I mean, yeah, it's another mount that we've had already, but kind of, you know, just tweaked a little bit, but got some kind of automaton lion. Okay, this is kind of, no, it's like a goat, right? Okay, it's a creepy goat. It's a creepy goat. That's a creepy boar. Okay. That's like a vampire bear. Interesting. I actually did a pretty good job with the theme on that one, I think. Creepy bug. Yeah, nothing in that blew my mind. I'm going to be honest. Nothing in that blew my mind. So here's the shapeshift, or the night phase soul shape ability. These are the current customization options that they have that we know of. So there's a moth, there's the Vulpin, spirit fox, and then this funky deer. I guess it's a deer. More stuff about Covenant abilities. BlizzCon 2020 might not be feasible. Oh well. So the talent calculator is live. We'll take a look at that in a minute. Here's confirmation. Demon Hunters and Death Knights now begin at level 8, not level 10. Updated quest markers. I wanted to take a look at that. Currently, the alpha, you can get to level 53 and play in Bastion, which apparently is going to be the first zone. We've got information on the level and item squish, which we talked about already. Characters can learn flying at level 25. So this is one of the questions like, hey, when can I, with all the changes where I basically have to play through the starter experience and then jump right into an expansion, at what point can I learn flying? I kind of want to see the details about this. Like if you have to earn apprentice riding is automatically taught when first logging onto their character, journeyman riding at 17, expert riding at 25, artisan riding at 27, master riding at level 30. We cannot currently verify level 1 characters going through a normal starting area, as level 1 characters are automatically assigned to Exile's Reach. Interesting. Okay, so you get apprentice writing automatically when you leave Exile's Reach. So maybe you only have to play 10 levels with that amount. That seems pretty interesting. But it doesn't currently say if you need an achievement or anything like that in order to be able to fly. I hope release is December or late November. They really need to get this right. BFA has caused tremendous damage to the game in many aspects. I agree. I mean, I literally started a YouTube channel based on World of Warcraft, pumped and excited for Battle for Azeroth, only to have some success and then crash and burn because the game just became unfun. So, you know, I feel that so much. Might also help balance class that better at single versus class that are heavy in the DPS charts too. That's true with the AoE change. I agree. They kind of announced some of their AoE changes in Shadowlands. We get into some of the character customization options here. I wanted to check those out. So let's look at Pandaren, some different eye colors. You can be a blue panda now and a purple panda. Okay. Interesting. Blood Elf characters. It says new eye colors, but I don't know. Like, I think when they data mine, they get like a ton of eye colors that don't actually exist. Like, this whole top 2 rows is probably 1, maybe 2 eye color options, but you just see a bunch of them. New hair colors, new skin tones. Okay. The Soulbind system, that is what I wanted to take a look at and show you guys that. Like I said, the book is available July 14th, so that to me is a strong indicator that we might get the expansion this year and maybe it won't get delayed to next year. All right, we got Dwarf, Night Elf, and Draenei customization options. So we have tattoos. If you want to be a Wildhammer Dwarf, you can. That is a lot of tattoos. Holy cow. It just keeps going. Looks like mainly tattoos. Oh, and skin tones. They're adding skin tones to pretty much everything, which is nice because it won't be World of White people. At least for, you know, like humans and dwarves and gnomes and stuff. Eye colors, okay. Night Elf skin tones. This is nice because I don't like most of the Night Elf skin tones, but I kind of like this the dark blue. This looks like the oh, what are they called? I can't. What are the allied race elves? Not the void elves, the other ones. The Nightborn. Yes, kind of looks like a Nightborn skin tone. Hair colors, tattoos. Those tattoos look better than the crappy old ones. Wow, does this guy have a mohawk? Is that a hairstyle you normally can get? Draenei, we got skin tones again. Some purples and some greens. We got some additional hair colors. Nothing too crazy there. Got weapon models, transmog sets, new ghost form animations. Torghast Tower of the Damned. That is the other thing that we're going to talk about here. I wanted to take a break from class gameplay stuff and just kind of look at some pictures for a little bit and give my voice a little bit of a rest. But Torghast is looking dope. It's looking cool. So apparently there are Covenant ability upgrades. We'll take a look at those. Soulbind Calculator. Okay, good. Trolls. Let's see what else we got. Undead character customization options. Orc and Gnome. I do want to look at these. Like, are we finally getting with the times? All right, we got the gnomes. We got the plate set, cloth set, bastion set, Rivendreth models, Quest lines, alpha class changes, class stats buffs nerfed. Okay. Oh, yeah. Let's look at those. Response to druid changes. I would like to see those as well. All right, Worgen customization options, special toy, and upgrades and professions. Okay, cool. Let's jump into a few of these real quick, and then we're going to get back to me talking my face off. All right, so troll customization options. We got face tattoos. Wow, some of those look pretty cool. Face tattoos for the dorky males. Eye colors, skin tone. So we got like sand troll options. That's pretty cool. Body tattoos. I want to be able to make a blood troll. I don't know if they're going to do it, but that's really what I want to make. I like these kind of like skeleton looking tattoos. They're pretty sweet. Body tattoos for the males. I don't have a troll character anymore. All right, undead character customization options. New skin tones. I'm really excited about this because skin tones kind of suck. Also, the hair is looking dope. Nice. Lots of new skin tone options. Lots of new like emo hair. The covered bone option. This is actually pretty cool. Oh, you still have the pointy toes though. You still have the pointy toes, and I think that's what bothers me the most is the pointy toes, man. I wonder if the covered bones option is going to change the armor, because typically on undead, like if you have pants, like they cut off at the knees and then you just have your boots or whatever. I wonder if this model is going to have pants that are all the way down, or if they're still going to be cut off. You're just going to see like the skin around your knees instead of just bones. New hairstyles. Yeah, lots of new crazy. Like, what is this? What is that? It's the brutal warrior look. New hair colors. Oh, you can have pink hair now. Okay. New orc character options. We got eye colors, facial scars, face tattoos. Let them know you went to prison. Skin tones. They're still all green. Ooh. Got Ninja Turtle green though. I got a thing with like trying to make my orc character look like a Ninja Turtle. We got some tattoos. That's actually pretty sick looking. New hair colors, new skin tones, body tattoos again. Okay. Gnomes. We got skin tones and eye colors. Okay, you can play as a blind gnome. I guess. No pupil. This is like really creeping me out, man. I don't know what it is about the like male gnome, but I'm just seeing all these eyes and it's like, what are they what are they looking at? Human hair color and face options. I feel like I'm browsing like a really weird swimsuit like magazine or something. Let's see. Worgen character customization options. Yo, what is this? This like gold color. Also, what? Ooh, I like this one. Face options are cool. Skin tones. Oh, look at that. That's so sweet. Nice. I like the stripe look. I also really like this one too. Black and yellow, black and yellow. No, I'm just kidding. Female face options. That's weird. That little, like, one eye has eyeliner. Kind of cool, though. Oh, eyeshadow. Okay. Why is it only on one eye here? That's kind of neat, actually. I kind of like that. Skin tones. Their stripey one doesn't look as cool. Man, the face model. I have not like looked at my Worgen with the new model enough. I like this one blind eye look. Also, these red eyes are cool. Okay, I like the Worgen stuff. I like it. Cool. Cool. I like the Worgen customization stuff. All right, what else? Okay, so let's jump in and talk about some of the actual stuff here. Done looking at pictures for a minute. So we have the talent calculator. Yeah, I don't know that it's all that interesting, but you can at least see where the levels for talents are landing. So if we jump into Blood Death Knight, you can see you get a talent at 15, 25, 30, 35, 40, 45, 50. So you'll get a talent every 5 levels. There's also something, I don't know if I have it pulled up, but there's something about spells getting more powerful as you level up. So let's say that you get your fireball on a mage at level, 5 or something. Well, it'll be rank 1, and at rank 2, it'll upgrade and have either an additional effect or a more powerful effect. Now, what I'm not quite sure of yet, because I haven't seen a lot of data on it, is I don't know if they're taking the top level ability that we currently have and dissecting it so you have a garbage version when you start out and eventually you build up to the normal version we currently have, or if they're taking the current version and kind of making that baseline and then adding to that as you level up so the current abilities we have actually get cooler. For example, let's say that our fireball ability does 100 damage, it does a burn for 60 damage, and it can splash to 3 people, right? Let's just say that's what the ability does. I don't know if and that's the current version that we have in BFA. I don't know if what they're doing is saying, okay, when you first get Fireball, it does 100 damage. Then at rank 2, it does 60 burn damage. Then at rank 3, it can splash to 3 different targets. Or if they're saying baseline, when you get the ability at rank 1, it does 100 damage, it does 60 burn damage, it splashes to 3 targets, and at rank 2, it does 100 burn damage. Or at rank 3, now you drop a fireball out of the sky or something. I don't know how they're doing that. Whether it's like a break the current ability down and build back up to it, or start with that ability and build even more onto it. It sounds interesting. It's not super relevant for me, I don't think, because I have all the characters max level, but I'm interested to see what goes on with that. There are a couple examples somewhere, but I don't want to take the time to try to dig through Wowhead and find them. But that is another way that they're trying to introduce the aspect of getting something interesting to do every time you level. So that was something they were talking about. Obviously, if you're getting a talent every 5 levels, that means there's 4 levels in there where you're not getting anything for talent. So they have to fill that with something. And I think that's where these spells, getting new spells and getting spell ranks, is supposed to come in and kind of fill the gap there. We'll see. Quest markers and map pins. So the big thing here is they wanted to highlight which quests are main quest or storyline campaign quest in a distinguished fashion. So they have this new quest marker that will show you campaign versus normal quest. Also, they have a TomTom-like waypoint marker that points you in the direction of your quest. So this is interesting. It's nice to kind of have this feature built in. I'm going to assume they'll let you turn it off if you want to. You can also now put map pins onto the map. It's only one, but basically you can drop a pin and then you can see where that pin is, so you can help navigate yourself to certain positions without having to constantly open the map. That's a really nice quality of life feature. I like that quite a bit. I also like the separation of the main campaign from the regular quests. It's nice. Usually you can figure that out, right? It's pretty obvious, but it's still nice. This just makes it even more brainless and easy to follow along with. So I like both those changes. They're nice quality of life changes. Brutal Warrior Emo. Yes. Okay, so talking about soul binds, this is the other covenant related thing that I mentioned you were going to have access to. So you're going to have the covenant signature ability, the covenant class ability, and then you're going to have access to soul binds. So soul binds, you will have the option to choose between 3 different ones. So let's take a look at this. It says the current iteration of the system is based on 3 different soul bind conduits: throughput, survival, and utility. Right now in the alpha, they're only limited to druid conduits shown below. You can mouse over each one to see their effects. Okay, so if we look at this, the conduits will likely be used in soulbind trees found in your soulbind pane, which is not currently available in alpha. But you can look at the, wow, that picture is tiny. Okay, yeah, it's super tiny. But you can see that basically over here on the left, you have your 3 options. This looks like the Rivendreth Vampire Covenant options. And you have 3 different soul binds you could choose from. This one is showing Theotar, the Mad Duke, and it's a mini talent tree. Now, the thing that I don't particularly like about this is it's like the choices look so limited. Like, I don't know. When I see a talent tree, like I expect there to be more places to branch off to. This is like, hey, do you want to go left or right? Okay, now get boom, 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 left or right. Okay, now get these. Like, I don't know. A talent tree to me is supposed to be about choices, and it looks like the choices are limited based on these screenshots. So I don't know. They're hovering over this one. It says arrogance. You have 5% increased critical strike chance against targets whose current health percentage is lower than yours. That's also not like super exciting. It's a nice effect, but it's not super exciting. But once again, this is supposed to be the system you're supposed to be able to switch to or change soul binds fairly easily. So they're showing some of the other stuff here. Here we go. Here's like a full talent tree. So you start here. This is nice. You get to choose between 3 different abilities. That's a good branch. That's a good choice. And it looks like these little icons here are the conduits that they're talking about. So if we jump back and look at those conduits, we had throughput, survival, and utility. So if I had to take a guess, I would say survival is the shield, throughput is the crossed swords, and utility is probably the lightning bolt. So it looks like, you know, you start here, you get a survival ability, and then you could choose, like, do you want to go for survival, throughput, or utility? Then you get a throughput, and then you could choose utility or survival, and then you culminate in your final ability here. So it looks interesting. Also, these look empty. So maybe you have the flexibility to plug some things into these to give yourself, I don't know, they're probably going to be like, I would assume they're like passive, boring things that you could put in here and they won't be super interesting, but who knows? We don't have a lot of information about the system yet. Like they said, it's not currently available in the alpha. But you can kind of get a taste for it. So there's a lot going on when you choose a covenant. It's a fairly big deal. Torghast, we're going to come back to. That's going to be the last thing we talk about on the stream. So covenant ability upgrades. So they have data mined some abilities to upgrade your covenant signature ability. So we're looking at the Kyrian one here where you summon a steward. And here are some of the options that you can use to upgrade. Yep. So bottomless chalice, your steward also provides vials of serenity to your allies. Your steward can hunt for materials within the Tower of Torghast. The vial will refresh the cooldown of Elysian Decree. You can have your steward give a compliment to a friend. Your vial of serenity refreshes the cooldown on weapons of order. So you can see there are ways to augment these abilities too. Awesome, really cool. I approve. I like it. I don't know if you can only pick one of these or if you can have a couple of them or all of them, but either way, I think this is really cool. It gives you the ability to have a slightly different signature ability than someone else. And I think that's really important. I think it adds an aspect of uniqueness and customization that's going to be nice to have for an ability like this where, you know, you think, in a perfect world, 25% of the player base will have this top level ability. So I like these. These are cool. These are interesting. And it looks like there is the ability to augment some of your class abilities too. So that's interesting. All right, Soulbound calculator is up there. We kind of took a look at those already. Let's see. Yeah, we'll pass on those for now. And we'll come back to that one. All right, professions are getting some upgrades, some changes. There are now optional materials. I'm not going to go into this too much, but basically it looks like you have the ability to add optional materials to help control RNG elements or enhance items by increasing their item level. So sounds like they're trying to do something with the profession system. I don't know if it's going to be enough to actually make a difference and make professions fun, but I am all for them trying to do anything to improve and enhance the profession system because, frankly, I think it's really boring and outdated. So keep on doing what you're doing, Blizzard. Try to make this more interesting than it currently is. All right, Blizzard's response to changes to Balance, Feral, and Restoration Druid class specializations. Let's see. So there's miscellaneous questions and topics. Let's see. Anything relevant in here? It doesn't look like it. Yeah, nothing in there that changes my opinion on those particular specializations. All right, let's talk about Torghast Tower. Okay, so we got a couple of WoW head articles here, but we also have a preview from Blizzard. So Torghast Tower, if you're not familiar, this is the thing that I am honestly the most excited about for Shadowlands in general. The tower is something that you go into and you can do it solo. I think you can do it with up to 5 players as well. It's supposed to be a roguelike style, repeatable play experience where you go in and it's kind of randomized what you're going to be fighting against and what your objectives are going to be. And as you play through different floors of the tower, you're going to progress. You're going to earn the ability to kind of augment your experience in the tower. I don't know exactly how you're going to do that. But if you think about some roguelike games, you have the ability to do a run, earn some kind of currency, and dump that into currency into abilities and effects that will help you on your next run. So it may be something like that. So looking at their preview of Tower of the Damned, you can see it has an ever-shifting interior with many areas to discover, and at this time, players are going to be able to explore the Skuldus Halls and Fractured Chambers. So this is what's available in the alpha as well. So these are different types of like themes. So Skuldus Hall uses rats, dogs, and other beasts to torment their quarry. With every floor, enemies become stronger, but you also become more powerful by using temporary skills called anima powers or anima powers. The levels become more complex the higher you climb. The first floors are going to have a simple layout, and then as you get higher up, you're going to be doing traps, puzzles, locked doors, all that kind of good stuff. All this sounds amazing. I love this concept. I think this sounds super interesting, and we're going to get to the anima powers here pretty soon, and those seem super cool. So the wings change every time you step inside and can be influenced by the jailer's command, which is going to change the type of enemies you encounter and the anima powers available for you to choose between. Okay? When we get to the anima powers here, you're going to see these grant you incredible strength to take on the more challenging allies. They often directly improve one of your Covenant class or signature abilities, modifying it with powerful properties for you to wield. The powers can be found hidden in corners, tucked away in phylacteries, or carried on the bodies of the jailer's servitors. Keep an eye out for powers that interact with each other in interesting ways. So these are like artifacts and stuff that you can get in roguelike games where, yes, you start at a base level doing a certain thing, but you get these random effects that can totally change the way that you are playing for that particular run. So even if outside of the tower, the class gameplay for World of Warcraft is okay, the potential for the tower to constantly change that gameplay experience, change the loop, change the way that you play your class is incredibly high. And that's why I'm the most excited for the tower over all the other content that's available in Battle for Azeroth. So if we look at these, you could see that this one here, Crown of Obstinance, says enemies within 15 yards have their casting speed reduced by 30%. So just a nice passive bonus. As you continue on throughout the tower, you're going to find Phantasma and Vendors. Phantasma is a currency that's used in Torghast that you can get from anima powers or also from breakable objects. You lose your Phantasma when you leave Torghast. You sometimes can find a broker or a vendor that will let you spend your Phantasma to buy anima powers along with other consumables for your run. By and large, your failures are measured in deaths, not with a timer. So dying repeatedly will alert the Terragru, I guess, a lumbering ironclad creature that will appear at the level's entrance and slowly move towards its end. If he sees any heroes, he would chase down and kill them. So basically, the more you die, the more you get hunted down by this thing as well. And then as you climb the tower, you can discover a floor that contains a legendary chest. Inside, you'll discover reagents to craft legendary items that can be taken to a mysterious rune sage and help you build legendary items. So this sounds really cool. Getting into the Wowhead post, they have some of the anima abilities in here and different systems as well. So this one is talking about the Obleron armor, which is a system within the tower. It allows players to buff themselves while inside Torghast, providing raw increases in power. It seems to be tied to the armory inside Torghast or the mall. So here's some examples. You can choose, assuming if this is roguelike style, you choose one of these two to either increase your maximum health by 10% or increase your mastery by 5%. So those are kind of boring, but for something that's kind of like armory related, that makes sense for it to increase your stats to me. There are some other effects here, Obleron effects, such as maximum health being increased by 25% within the mall for 1 hour, versatility increased by 10%, etc., etc. Phantasma, this is the currency that we were just talking about. So you can collect this and spend this and improve your abilities. Don't really know what all these are used for, but there's stuff here like your flash heals are now instant and cost no mana, but consume 5 Phantasmas. So here's an example where you're collecting the currency not to use at a vendor, but to use as a resource for a more powerful ability. I'm assuming that if you run out of Phantasma, you either can't cast flash heals or you lose the instant cast no mana effect. Looting Phantasma reduces the cooldown of Astral Shift by 1 second per Phantasma. Skeletons in the Jailer's Tower now drop 10 times as much Phantasma. Like, all these effects are just super cool, super interesting, and they're going to change the way that you play the game. They're going to change the way that you're playing your character. And to me, that's the thing that keeps World of Warcraft interesting, is just having a good core gameplay loop, but in the absence of that, having these effects available in the tower is going to do the trick. And it's going to make it so that when I log on to my Death Knight and I jump into the tower, I don't know exactly what I'm going to get. I know what that core gameplay kit is going to be, but I don't know what the challenges are going to be. I don't know what enemies I'm going to face. I don't know what cool like buffs I'm going to pick up and how that's going to change the way that I play during this current run. Like, this has so much potential for me if they get it right, that I think this in itself is a big enough reason to be excited about Shadowlands. So this is just kind of like some different, powers and blah, blah, blah. This one here is the anima power upgrades, where they just have a big list of general power upgrades, but then they also have specific ones as well. We have the Demon Hunter, Mage, Priest, Warlock, all available here. I think the one I'm probably the most familiar with is going to be Demon Hunter. So I think I want to take a look at this one. But these, I started looking at these, and these are super cool. The Demon Hunter class anima powers, right? So Cadaverous Eye, your eye beam and fell devastation cooldown is reduced by 85% during metamorphosis. So all of a sudden you pick this up, it mutates your anima power, and now when you go into metamorphosis, you just spam eye beam, which is interesting. Here's another one. Metamorphosis increases your size, movement speed, and melee range by 100%. Your first Chaos Strike or Soul Cleave on a floor deals an additional 750% damage. So now all of a sudden you get to a floor and you're like, ooh, maybe I want to hang on to Chaos Strike or Soul Cleave and use this on a big elite character or something to do a massive ton of damage. That's going to change the way you play your class. Fell Rush and Infernal Strike damage is increased by 400%, but it damages you for 15% of your total health if it doesn't hit an enemy. So all of a sudden, now you can just like Fell Rush and Infernal Strike all over the place, and you're just dashing, dealing massive damage, but all of a sudden, if you're not hitting enemies, you're taking a percentage of your health, so you're not using this as an ability to, dash through a hallway to get to the next section or whatever, like you do a lot of times on a Demon Hunter. So this will massively change the way that you play your character. And I'm not going to go through all these, but I wanted to save this for like the last thing that I talked about, because I think that the tower is hands down the most interesting thing about Shadowlands so far. And even if Blizzard doesn't nail it for class gameplay in general, for me, if I get to max level and the class gameplay for a character or specialization is not all that interesting baseline level, I'm probably not going to want to run dungeons with it. I'm probably not going to raid with it. Probably not going to want to PvP, blah, blah, blah. But if all of a sudden I have that class and it's in okay shape, it's decent enough, it doesn't bore me, it's fine, but I can go into the tower and these abilities suddenly elevate that class gameplay to something absolutely crazy. And this is something that I talked about a long time ago in a video for how to improve World of Warcraft. But having access to these augmentations for your abilities that would never fly in traditional World of Warcraft content because they're too overpowered, but being able to use them in this particular situation, I think is going to be awesome. I think it's a great step in the right direction. It's something that I thought they should do in general. Even I think at the time, maybe I was talking about like dungeon specific abilities, where your class would get the option to do crazy stuff, but you could only do it in a dungeon. So it doesn't affect leveling content. It doesn't affect open world content. It doesn't affect PvP balance. It doesn't affect raiding. It's just like in that dungeon, you can do this crazy stuff. And that's basically what this is now you have the ability to do this overpowered, crazy, wacky stuff. And it's random. So you never really know what combination of effects you're going to get when you go into the tower. I personally am just a huge fan of roguelikes anyway, so this is right up my alley, and I hope that they execute on this well. Last thing I want to say, as part of the stream, is like I said, I don't have access to the alpha yet. The only thing I can really do is kind of tune in to Belgular's channel or Preach's channel or whoever has access to alpha and look at the content they're doing and kind of get a feel for what their impressions are of the alpha currently. Most of what I've seen has been really positive, aside from the fact that, some of the classes or specializations don't seem to be getting as many changes as people would like or hope. But other than that, it seems like, people are liking Torghast, they're liking the leveling, they're liking, basically everything that they're running into in the alpha. So it's looking up, it's looking positive, it's looking really good so far. And I'm really interested. I'm going to be keeping a really close eye on Shadowlands as we move forward. And like I mentioned at the beginning of the stream, I sincerely hope that Blizzard does a great job. I eat my words and come back and want to play World of Warcraft full force again. I'm not confident that that's going to be the case yet, but just based on what they've shown so far, I mean, it's looking pretty good. They did a lot more that than I thought they were going to do, but they've done it in little pieces kind of all over the place. If you took away the Covenant abilities, if you took away the tower, and we were just talking about what they've done to the core gameplay of the majority of the classes, I honestly don't think that they've done enough. But I think with the additional layers of the Covenant ability, the signature one, and the class one, the upgrades that you can get for it, the soulbind system, and all the stuff available in Torghast, I think going into Torghast is going to be a good experience. It's going to be a fun experience for me. So if we're just looking at, hey, let's jump into World of Warcraft, let's level, let's run some dungeons, let's raid, I think that experience right now is still not good enough for me to want to come back and play a bunch of World of Warcraft. But when you incorporate the other aspects that I just mentioned, it's like night and day between my level of interest. So I think the level experience is going to be good just because the art team does a great job. So it's going to be fun, at least the first time or two, to go through and play through that content and see the new zones and all the pretty stuff. And it'll get old eventually. And I think that maybe the Covenant abilities and the Soulbind system will do enough to make like dungeon gameplay and stuff interesting. But for me, it really all comes down to Torghast and how well they do on this, as well as what other changes we get from now until the game actually comes out. So yeah, I don't know. I would say that I'm a lot more positive and optimistic about Shadowlands than I was around BlizzCon last year and a couple of months ago, just based on what I've seen for the alpha. I think if they nail Torghast, then I'm in. I'll eat my words. I have no idea. How to make... I've been thinking about this, and I've been saying to myself, what if, I come back and I have to make guides? Like, how am I going to make guides for classes when you have to incorporate the Covenant abilities and the soul binds, and then you get into Torghast? Like, it just seems like there's a lot of permutations of different things that you can do, and it's going to be interesting to figure that all out if Shadowlands looks like it's worth it. And like I said, I think I'm a little more on the positive side of it potentially looking like it's going to be worth it. But I know a lot of that is also like, hey, alpha, we're seeing it, hype, and look at all the pretties on the videos, and look at all the cool art and stuff. So we'll see how long it lasts. I mean, we definitely have a solid 6 months at least, I think, before we see anything in terms of a launch, actual launch for the expansion. So we got a while. Anyway, thanks for tuning in. Once again, if you enjoyed the stream and you haven't liked it yet, please do so. If you're watching this later, leave some comments below. I will be responding to comments. I've gotten a lot of comments on old videos that I just haven't been able to respond to. It's a good thing, I guess, that I'm getting enough comments that I just can't keep up. But I want to, this is a new video, so you have a window here where I'll respond to those comments. And like I said, I asked some questions throughout this stream. Really what I want to know is, hey, do you think the changes to your current main look interesting? Are you excited about playing it in Shadowlands? Did changes to a different class of specialization catch your eye and make you think, hey, maybe I want to swap mains? And if so, what are you looking at? Do you think the Covenant system is going to cause issues, or do you think it's going to be pretty cool? And are you excited for Torghast Tower of the Damned? All right, everybody, that's going to do it for my stream. I got a couple of other little comments here. Haroon says, I hope they make it equivalent for heroes with other roles because visions are harder for healers. Hopefully Torghast is better. Yes, I agree. That is a very good point. That is one of the things I was thinking about for Torghast. What if you are a healing main? Like, how's Torghast going to work if you solo it, right? Because you're supposed to be able to do these by yourself. And I believe they scale based on the number of participants. But I agree. Like, visions seem like they'd be harder for healers. This seems like it's going to be harder for healers. But I think that the potential there is if you are playing a healer specialization, I imagine there are going to be some anima augmentations you can get that turns some of your healing abilities into damage style abilities, or make some of your damage style abilities just hit hard as hell. I imagine that's one of the ways that they could tweak and adjust this so that you're able to, kind of compete on the same level as a healer. So we'll have to see. Thanks everybody for tuning into the stream. I have a little bit of a crazy work schedule now. I'm going to try to keep putting out some videos, keeping up with the news. Honestly, future streams hopefully probably won't be as long as this one. I just had a lot to catch up on, and I haven't done a World of Warcraft video of any sort in a long time. So I just kind of wanted to get it out there and give you guys something to watch, while you're working from home or whatever. But we'll be keeping up with the news, keeping in touch with what's going on with Shadowlands, having some more discussions about that. Also here on the channel, I'm probably going to be taking a pretty close look and making some content for Legends of Runeterra, which launches at the end of the month. That is the League of Legends card game. Pretty excited about that one as well. And then we're just going to keep trucking along for right now. No set schedule, no anything in particular that I have on my mind. Just want to kind of keep making some content and keep pushing through. And we'll see where things land, in a couple of months. And if we're lucky, I'll get some alpha access. And if that's the case, then yeah, we'll be doing that here on the channel a lot. So if anybody knows Blizzard, anyone from Blizzard, be like, hey, hook them up. No, I'm just kidding. We'll see how it goes. Thanks for tuning into the stream. I hope you're having fun in whatever it is that you're doing. As always, I hope everybody is staying safe. And thanks for joining me in the stream. I really do appreciate it. I know it's been a while, but there were quite a few people watching, and I really, really do appreciate that. Thank you so much. And I'll see you on the next video. Peace.